Hello SGT, let's have a look at ancient technology and precision and counter and fill in some gaps, especially like lost ancient aliens, lost ancient high technology. Rather, one says it's the Atlanteans, one says it's the aliens, but they both say it can't be done because technology, blah blah. Alright, Great Pyramid. So along with vases which are asymmetrical and the Serapeum boxes which are not precision, one of the sort of go-to things for this sort of mystery crowd is, the pyramid, precision. What's the actual claim for precision is that it's alignment to true north. Some will say it's 0.05 of 1 degree accuracy, and so that's along the ground. Now, Glenn Dash, and some have pointed this out in the comments, so let's just, the casing stones are missing, so this accuracy comes from that they measured the surveying technique and the surveying posts holes around there, and using that method you would get an accuracy of that level. We don't have the casing stones aren't there, so it's impossible to truly measure the pyramid itself. What the surveyor, you got an architect, you got a surveyor, and then you got a builder. All of them are going to come at it from different ways. The architect, he designs a perfect building. The surveyor surveys almost perfectly where it should be and where it should be aligned to, and then the builder has to actually do it, and then it never quite works out that way because the builder deals with the harshest of realities. But Glenn Dash points out 4 minutes of arc, or 1/15th of 1 degree, it's about 0.066 of 1 degree accuracy to true north. He also points out so basically it's a gnomon. This is an ancient simple technique. You measure the shadow, especially you can do it on the equinox, and you can get your 4 cardinal points with some very simple geometry, very simple. And using shadows, sticks, strings, and drawing a few circles, you can get essentially perfect cardinal points. Whether you can deliver that into the building is a different question, but that's what it's based off. Okay, now let's look at just one of the Roman aqueducts, the Aqua Claudius. 69 kilometres total length, 55 kilometres of that underground tunnels, and then 14 kilometres of arches. This is just one, 100 feet, 30 metres rising into the air. We see a small section of it. You add all that stone up just to this one aqueduct, and it starts to turn into a big pile of stones. Now, Vitruvius, famous Roman architect engineer, recommended a grade of 1 in 4800 for aqueducts. Aqueducts are fed by gravity. They did have water pumps, but not big ones to deal with this kind of thing. And why would you, if you don't need it, you just use gravity. Most aqueducts still rely on gravity fed. You have a high source up in a hill, and you just run a pipe downward, and you keep the pipe above the level where you want the water to be fed. The pressure is going to be delivered, so you have high pressure water. For instance, New York, the aqueduct there delivers it from a long way away, high pressure water. But the recommended slope of 1 in 4800, what does that mean? Well, it means for every 1 metre, so the aqueduct has to keep dropping. So for every metre that you drop, you have to go along the ground for 4800 metres. That's a slope of 0.012 degrees, which is better than the alignment of the pyramid. Alright, 0.02 degrees was commonly achieved. We'll come to that in a... So we have the recommended, but we have what's there in reality. These can be measured because these things had to work, and they still work in play. Some of the arches and bits have been broken down, but in the places where they still work, they're high precision in concept, but in build as well. And this is not along the ground to true north for the 230 metres of the base length of a Great Pyramid. This is miles and miles, keeping it through the air, along the horizon, making the tunnel has to maintain that down. If the tunnel dips down too low, then you're screwed. And okay, let's just keep going. So it's not just that it's through the air, such especially with the arches. Now, with the tunnels, if you did drop down, then you could dig out a basin and then sort of go back up again. That can be repaired. But the arches especially, they have to be spot on. Because if they fall too quickly, they're going to fall short of the city, and then you don't. Then it's no point. You've just moved a stream from one part of a rural area to another part where it's no good for you. But what the point is also is that they followed a curved path. So it's not just the precision to keep at that same angle over these massive distances. It was twisting and turning, and like the aqueducts were not in a straight line from point to point. They had to follow the terrain, and tunnels and things. So hella curved path. Just some of the aqueducts leading into Rome. So you're getting kilometres and miles. The total length, the underground length, and the arches. Just some of them into Rome. If you include the ones Spain, France, Germany, Turkey, Jordan, Libya, add these up, huge amounts. And you add that stone up and put them into a single pile like a pyramid, all in one spot, mate. You got, it's all there now. All right. Extraordinary greatness of the Roman Empire manifests itself above all in three things: the aqueducts, the paved roads, and the construction of the drains. Aqueducts, roads, and drains. Well, you can only ever see a small section. You think, oh, this looks big deal. It's a little, sure. You don't see the whole length of the road, or of the drain. So bring these things together and pile them up, and you got a hell of a pile of stone. But not only that, they had the drains, and the aqueducts especially had to be precise, and not just like from point to point. They had to keep, because they were gravity fed, and so I had to keep that slope. So essentially, again, through the air, not a line along the ground, but a line through the air. Ancient Egyptian surveying tools or ancient Roman surveying tools. What the Romans could do and did achieve, the Egyptians could do and did achieve, because where did the Romans learn from? Well, they learnt from previous civilisations. We'll come to that in a moment. The stretching the cord ceremony, this ancient, goes way back to the beginning of dynastic Egypt. Sheshet was the female counterpart of Thoth. She taught Thoth how to write, and then he taught it to humanity. She double-checked his math. But it's the symbol, and this is a later image. I think this is from, that might be Alexander the Great depicted there, but there's the later symbol of Sheshet. We'll come back to the earlier symbol, because on Roman tombs of surveyors, which was a prestige job, so you have a groma, we'll show that in a moment, you have the plumb lines coming from them, and the tools of surveying. And again, this is a groma, this cross here. Okay, surveyors, whether it was Stonehenge, pyramids, aqueducts, or the local highway, surveyors is really between the architect and the builder comes the surveying and getting the alignments and the position on the ground done right. So surveying, older tools, a couple of the depictions of Sheshet stretching the cord ceremony. This one I think is a bit nicer. It's more like the original, the oldest images of her headdress. What's going on there? Very different ideas. It's sort of like it's dope leaves, all these other things. Well, she was a goddess of surveying, so stretching the cord. There you've got even a measuring cord. Alignments, she was surveying, building. My eye was fixed upon Mesketu. Mesketu was the north, like the Big Dipper back in the day, the North Star. And again, the god of timekeeping stands beside me in front of his merket, which is another measuring tool, timekeeping tool, and the measuring cord. So, all right. Layout of temples, we go back to the earlier pictures of Sheshet's symbol and her headdress. There's the earlier ones is different from the later ones. Juan Antonio Belmonte, Orientation of Egyptian Temples and Overview. He talks about been lots of studies in regards to alignments, but especially the northern alignment. All the pyramids got their entrances to the north. In the pyramid texts, it's to the north that they're going. That's the star at the heart of it all. Don't worry about this Orion Sirius stuff, because even in the pyramid text, it's Robert Val makes a big thing out of it, but the lines that reference Orion and serious, outweighed by that which talks about the North Star. That was the point. That's why they're all aligned to the north. Okay, Roman surveying tools again. So that's a groma. Pretty simple tool. You can get the basic geometry. You get your right angles and you hang plumb lines from there. Then you line up 2 strings, and you can. So you don't even need the 4 points. You just basically need a straight edge with 2 strings hanging on either side from a plumb line, and then you take your measurements. Modern surveyor can just like put down his tool. He can take a big single measurement over a long distance, bang, and off he goes. With a groma, you would just take it in smaller incremental measurements and then find your midpoint. And the Roman surveying roads, dikes, all these, like, they were just awesome, spot on to do with it, and they did it with all primitive technology. Now, for measuring level, this is I always get a chorobates, might be, or a chorobate, but it's pretty simple. It's a table with a groove in the middle. You use plumb lines to make sure that it's all plumb, and then with a bit of water there in the groove, you can measure the angles, and that's how they're able to keep the aqueducts at such a constant slope. Very simple tools, but they work very well, and you take multiple measurements very often. And yeah, modern stuff, it's like click, bang, off we go, we got it. This takes a little bit longer. You just take multiple measurements, double check, triple check, and you're all right. So back to that symbol of Shesset, that suggesting that was a groma, because again, the image reflects that what the tool would look like, and her position, her job reflects surveying. So hang some plumb lines from there, and away you go. Even the spotting tool on top. But if Romans could do it, the Egyptians could do it. And why? Because where did the Romans learn it from? Almost all of it come from the Library of Alexandria in Egypt. Same with the Greeks. Okay. Before that, it was Heliopolis, the main centre of learning. So surveying tools. It's in the record. It can be done. It's there in the record now. Grammaticus, his textbook on surveying, from Roman imperial times right up till, I think it was like maybe 15th, 16th, 17th century, was still the textbook on surveying. And again, just like Vitruvius's work, Grammaticus, it's a technical book. Now, there are portions that get into more mysticism and religion, but the technical parts are very technical. They describe the instruments. Hieron was of Alexandria, Library of Alexandria, also did a surveying tools work as well. So back to the Claudius. So how does a aqueduct work? It's really simple. Just get a water source that's high, and you just run a pipe at a constant angle. Make sure that when the pipe arrives at the city, that it's higher than where you want to feed the water. When you go over a valley, you need to build a viaduct or an aqueduct, or if you're going across flat land, you need to keep that angle and need to sustain that angle. And unlike the Great Pyramids, it was very well built, but that alignment is more theoretical. It could be, but the aqueducts is provable. Like they did it. And also, like with an aqueduct, if you have too many like dips, you're going to build dams and stuff along the way. So along these massive distances, not like finding north and then building a 230 metres length of building and keeping it in that line. This was over massive distances, and again, the aqueducts are twisting and curving as well. So you can't just sort of spot one line and then follow it. You have to do constant measurements all along the way. Just like the spicy aqueducts must flow. So the grade achieved, okay, Segovia, Spain. These are granite blocks, no mortar. Recommended 1 to 4,800 grade, 0.012 degrees, a small fraction of what the supposed precision of a Great Pyramid was built. Pont de Gard, this is in Nimes in France, 50-kilometre long aqueduct, really twisting and turning, passing over rivers, and across valleys as well. Precise fitted blocks, no mortar as well. There was restoration work of some because it'd been around for a while, but for the most part, these Roman bridges, even I think they're still standing. The arch bridges in Iraq. All right, they're engineering with primitive tunic wearing technology, but they've stepped up from the loincloth to the tunic. So this is the high grade technology. All right, average grade is 1 in 3,000, so that's still 0.019. Let's just call it 0.02 degrees achieved. It's better than the pyramid. Through the air over massive distances as well. This is the stuff that they won't tell you in Lost Ancient High Technology, because we've got the writings, the evidence is there. The Romans themselves, like we learnt from Heliopolis, we learnt from Alexandria. But again, when I used to, people really get upset if you like. All of a sudden, they get really skeptical about the works of Hieron's works. There was they found it in some old, where's the original? Okay, to them I say, well, where's your original source for Plato? You provide, so if you want to go big on Plato and Atlantis, and then you want to get skeptical on the works of Hieron, and Hieron was mentioned by much older writers, so there are older writings talking about the works of Hieron that do survive, and those tools that were described. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If anyone says, well, where's the evidence? Go, well, give me an original copy of Plato. I want handwritten original copy, otherwise no. So, all right. And I want evidence, archaeological evidence of Atlantis. All right. So back to the roads, the aqueducts and the drains. Appian Way, the Roman road networks like hundreds of thousands of kilometres. Maybe at least, I think it's over 100. The quality roads, I think, are about 40,000 kilometres. That's the circumference. They built a road all the way around the earth, high quality roads, not their lesser roads as well. But just the Appian Way, 230 miles, 370 kilometres, basalt paving. So, I think they're, oh God, now I forget them. I think they're about 10 metres wide, the roads themselves, so 370 times that, times there's a lot of volume, a lot of basalt there. But Lost Ancient High Technology, like there's on the eastern side of the Great Pyramid, there's a courtyard with, I think it's about 50 by 50 metres of paved basalt. So, lost height, oh my God, this cannot be lost height. How to that I say, big whoop. Look at the Appian Way. They won't tell you this because they've got to sell the mystery. This is Lost Ancient High Technology works where there's a vacuum, where there's a void. They can operate and they can insert anything in there. But if they start bringing up other stuff, well, then this puts this into context. And then, copper chisels. I've done experiments. A copper saw has no disadvantage really to a steel saw at all. So if anyone says, well, you can't saw, how did they saw with steel? And so if it's copper versus iron, it's the stupid argument. It's been settled. This is being done. Copper wedges work perfectly to split the stones. What's the problem there? Stone pounders. Well, metal pounders, what's the difference? They all work, all right. But another important thing, so aqueducts, roads, drains are over a long distance. You can't see the entirety of the build. And so the pyramid's all in one spot. Well, that's even better because you can just bring everyone onto one spot. You've got to now stretch all these things out and keep them aligned and gravity fed throughout the entire way. And they serve the people. They serve a purpose. Unlike vanity projects, whatever you want. In Natural History by Pliny even talks about the disdain that he looked at certain leaders in cities that would build grand temples instead of building things that would serve the people, such as roads and, useful things for the people rather than vain monuments. Okay. I'll try to remember to link this in a description because instead of using manual labour, the Romans in some places used water-fed from aqueducts to power a wheel, which would make a stone sawing machine, which is no different to the gang saws that they still use today to cut granite slabs. ancient technology. They've just replaced an electric motor with a water-powered motor, and the Romans just replaced hand power with water power. Water wheels for lifting as well. These go back quite some time. So you lost ancient high technology. I look for the complicated solution, and they're going to avoid not just the simple solution, but also the evidence, and not talk about these, like pick this one, look at this one little this one stone defines all the millions of stones around. Don't look at the rough stuff, just look at this one lovely, look, it fits. That's how they work. Okay. So also philosophically, NASA spent, back in the 60s when millions was actually millions, $1.5 million to make a pen that works in space, basically, on Earth. It's a pen that writes upside down. Russians used a pencil. So you can approach solutions with a complicated or a simple answer, and the simple one is usually the better one. Men in general are quick to believe that which they believe to be true, thus lost ancient high technology, Atlantis, ancient aliens. Because it's tricky to actually look into things and then do the sums and actually get the tool and try it. That's difficult. If someone sells you lost ancient high, well, it's just a laser anti-gravity ray, and blah blah blah. Well, that's just what you wish to believe to be true. I think that one of the reasons for ancient aliens lost ancient high technology is that as traditional religion is sort of moving backwards, New Age religions are rushing in to fill the void, because I believe that it gives people a sense of mystery, and that the gods will, the Atlanteans will return, will find their hall of records, and the meaning of life shall be discovered, or the cosmic United Planets Federation is going to come down and save us all. And I like the expression, crap in one hand, wish in the other, and see which one gets filled up first. Again, by the way, Romans, Greeks, engineers, astronomers, geometers all went to or come from the Library of Alexandria, with very few exceptions. That's in Egypt. So the Roman technology really did come through Chaldea or Mesopotamia, the Twin Rivers, Egypt, and other societies. Every society is a legacy society of what comes from before. So if the Romans learnt from the Egyptians and could do it, including making lifting machines and large vessels that could carry large stones and fit large stones and do all these other things, why is it so difficult for the ancient aliens, lost ancient high technology, the crowd, to believe that? The Romans wore tunics, but they're advanced. But the loincloth, all they could do was bang rocks together. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I believe it's a cult and it's a business. Voila. We are a species with amnesia. This guy is fucking brilliant at poetry and rhetoric. Top fucking notch marketing he's got. But this species with amnesia. No, he has an ideology with, and I'd say, purposeful selective amnesia. Anything that doesn't... Egypt is because the records are scanned, you can insert anything in there. Singing priests, levitating stones. This is what this guy says. 10-degree ramps is the maximum. This is what this guy says. Not some old quote of his that he abandoned. What he still says to this day. And so don't fall for this poetic nonsense. What they're not telling you is what you really need to know. But they just keep recycling. I have a spiral core. Uncharted X just recently in the podcast still says it's a spiral. This has been, and he's saying, well, studies must be done. No, Ben, the studies have been done. You know that they've done. You censor them, and then you go out and lie and say that it's grifters, lies. The belief explains some of the parts, but when they're even presented with the evidence, these grown-ass adults, then they pretend it doesn't exist and deliberately censor it. This is a lie. This is a grift. And every year there's a new cycle of, let's go to Peru, let's go to Egypt. Same thing. Oh, point at the stones. Oh, the drill. Oh, look at the striations. Oh, look at the vases. Oh, symmetry. Oh, the precision. And this is all. They know it's not, and they cover up the truth, and then they accuse that the archaeological establishment of not addressing it and covering up the truth. They're grifters, they're liars, they're scammers. Years ago, you give them benefit of a doubt because they didn't know, then the evidence gets provided to them, and again, they heavily censor it. They're the censorious people. They're the ones who ignore. They're the ones who suppress. They are the establishment. Again, they complain that we're being suppressed. Go onto YouTube or anything on the internet, type in ancient history, and the algorithm throws this thing at you. Graham Hancock is the establishment. Uncharted X and these other channels, they are the establishment. The machine loves them. And what's more, have they ever provided 1 single cent, $1 single to do the tests and experiments that they demand of others? So this is another side of the grift. So they make the profits, what's the saying? Privatise the profits, socialise the losses. Everyone else must do their work for them and pay for it to be done, and they have no responsibility. They don't contribute anything. They're just making the money. So again, F you in regards to that. So you start bringing up, you want things done, you contribute. These tours, these books, these are making money, and not 1 cent gets done to it. But they insist that people do their work for them. Entitlement beyond belief. You're supposed to be adults. You're supposed to care. Apparently you care about this. Anyway, with that, SGD, have a good one. Don't believe these grifters. What they're not telling you and what they're deliberately lying about is what you really need to know.